Thank you, Andy, and good afternoon, everybody. And yeah, I'm Ben Foster. I'm Technical Sales Support Manager at Blue Phoenix, and I'd like to talk to you today about Incinerator bottom ash aggregate and how the aggregate in the circular economy and the journey that Blue Phoenix takes to turn a material that once was discarded and now we give it some value and utility. So in our industry, we've got waste hierarchy. So we'll have here the humble black bin. Anyone put that black bin out this morning? Yep. Anyone know where that black bin waste goes? Have I ever thought about it? Well, so hopefully after today's talk, you might have a better understanding and idea of what the process is. So in the waste hierarchy, we have prevention. So my useful prop here, the plastic water bottle. Prevention would consist of me avoid buying this in the first instance. And the other next measure would be reduction, so that's making the bottle smaller, so there's less material usage in the material. And then possibly the next step could be to reuse the water bottle once it's empty, and then before moving on to the likes of recycling the bottle back into a different process where it's made into something else, maybe another water bottle, for example. And then beyond recycling, we then have recovery and ultimately disposal, which is where generally we don't want to be. So at Blue Phoenix, we take a material that once was considered a waste, a disposal, and move it back up the value chain where we can once again find utility and use for it. So previously, in the material would have been gone to waste, would have been gone to a landfill. So in the UK, about 5% or about 5% of greenhouse gas emissions globally go generated from landfill. From methane. Generally, I think we can all consider that landfills are not good for the environment. It's not a particularly ideal way to deal with our waste. They take up lots of land, and if not properly sealed, heavy metals, microplastics can leach into the environment, which is something we don't really want. So Blue Phoenix looks to repurpose its material to generally avoid sending material to landfill. So looking at other elements of primary resources that can feed into our everyday consumption. So mining and quarrying. So the emissions from those processes contribute to about 60% of all extracted resources. So yeah, things that trucks don't grow from trees, but it's the material that we mine out of the ground in terms of quarrying and metal extraction. And in those combination of those processes, they attribute to 10% of greenhouse gas global emissions. So Blue Phoenix in the circular economy. So the humble black bin waste I mentioned earlier starts off at the far end in municipal solid waste. So the local authority would collect your black bin and it would be taken to either a waste transfer station and eventually find its way to an energy from waste facility, where that material that has a calorific value is then used as a fuel to generate power that feds back into the national grid. And what is that, like any industrial process, the incineration of that fuel is not 100% efficient. Approximately 20% of the material that goes in is left as a residue, which then in years gone by had no value, which Blue Phoenix saw potentially had value in it, and has then taken that material and we process it ourselves to remove the metal that has value that we can then sell on into the metal refinery business. And the residue from our process we can then use as a construction product, which then feeds into building new infrastructure. And from that new infrastructure, that then feeds into the market economy, where we all consume goods and services, which we then consume and generate more waste, and then closing the loop. So if you take nothing away from this talk and this slide, it's considering the fact that not all waste that goes for incineration is not the end. There is further utility in the material. So incinerator bottom ash aggregate, what is it? Where does it come from? It's the byproduct of processing incinerator bottom ash that we receive from an energy from waste facility. So the material is graded and screened, sent over a series of screens to make material small in different fraction sizes, where we can send it over a series of magnets and density separators to further extract the metal. And then those waste streams are then blended back together to form the requirements of different specifications, such as specification for highway works. We have a routine testing regime where we test in compliance with unbound aggregate standards, BSEN 13242, and we have a series of ISO standards for quality, environmental management, and competency and occupational health and safety, as we are dealing with a waste, so we need to be fully compliant with all those regulations. So of particular interest to Aggregate is the road application for our material. It can be used as a road subbase and in capping layers. And some of its benefits over other primary aggregates would be that it's got 20% less dense. You can get, which then the benefit of that is it's 20% less vehicle movements on our roads. And it's got a 90% less embedded carbon versus primary aggregates as well that's been quarried out of the ground. And it also has a benefit of having some cementitious and pozzolanic benefits, being as the material undergoes a similar chemical process to concrete and clinker and how that's made, which further gives durability and strength to the material. So these are the examples of some of the tier 1 contractors and customers that have used our material in the past. As you see, they've all sort of bought into what Blue Phoenix is about and what it's trying to achieve, and seen the value in our material from a sustainability point of view. So yeah, as I've mentioned, the main value in IBA is its sustainability credentials. It's diverting material away that otherwise gone to landfill and been disposed of, and in doing so, it's preserving natural resources. The material that comes from quarries, we want to keep that in the ground as much as possible, or use it for applications whereby aesthetics are not quite so important. It's never going to replace certain things for like gabion stones or decorative aggregate or railway ballast, but for things like subbase in roads and the concrete slabs, it's more than suitable. And the secondary benefits from that are the environmental benefits. That, because you're using less material and you've got less CO2 than the embedded carbon, we're looking at around 0.3 kilograms of CO2 equivalent for every ton we produce, which is considerably less than the 7.75 kilograms for primary aggregate that is DEFRA gives for primary aggregate, and also far less than the about 3.2 that's given for construction demolition waste. So we're very competitive on the carbon savings of materials. And with the reduction of the volume that's needed to supply into these schemes, it also means that there's less trucks on the road, which I think we can all agree is a good thing. It basically relieves congestion on our roads, and it can reduce the degradation that we've got on our roads. I mean, don't make the potholes any worse than we've already got around the moment. And then there's the economic benefits that we're taking local waste, finding local jobs in the local economy, that you haven't got, bringing in quarried material from into the south of England that's come all the way from Scotland or Norway, for example, and you've got giving local jobs to local people. So looking at like the net zero UK strategy, took some excerpts from that, and they sort of identified that in the local authorities, 8% of the UK's UK emissions are within the influence or scope of local authorities, and that it identified that it involves local governments play an essential role in meeting national ambitions. Although a lot of the local authorities don't have any specific targets, I've seen that at least 80% of local authorities have declared some sort of climate emergency. So I'm aware that it's on a lot of everybody's radars, but we all need to do our part towards getting to net zero. So some of the challenges that we've got to get there, I know local authorities have got funding and resourcing issues that you've all got the challenges to meet, whereas so for something that Blue Phoenix can help with is the fact that we've got material that's low cost and low carbon, that those two both synergy there, that's something we can work with. We appreciate that sort of these low carbon solutions also come with a price increase, so trying to balance those two is a challenge for yourselves. And you've also got lots of different stakeholders that you need to consult on these matters. But this is something I think that Blue Phoenix can definitely help with. So yeah, as a local authority, if this is something that you're interested in, sort of your ESG commitments and looking to lower your carbon footprint assessments, we'd like to help with you. So yeah, if you'd like to come talk to us on Stand 18 and learn more about it, we'll have to answer those questions. Thank you very much for listening. If you've got any questions, we'll have to answer them.